Molly left the doctor's office and sat down beside her husband. He looked at her carefully. So what? Like you don't know. There is a possibility, but every year it is less and less. Molly wiped her eyes. Alex, what do we do? Molly, we'll definitely think of something. She stood up and turned sharply to him. What are we going to come up with? And most importantly, when? I'm 37 years old, and that's a lot. You understand me? Molly, please calm down. People are looking at us. I don't care. Can you tell me when we will come up with something? I asked you to divorce me. Maybe you or I would have had a baby by now. Now what? Tell me now what? Even if we succeed, which I doubt very much, will I be able to carry a child? Alex was finally able to take her by the arm and lead her outside. I don't understand. Molly, are you blaming me for everything now? No, it's my fault. I didn't have to marry a cop with such a small salary. I could have done IFV a long time ago. Molly understood that she was saying very hurtful things, but she couldn't stop. She had always enjoyed her husband's work very much, including the time they met. She said that only real men serve in the police. The wife stopped by their car. After a couple of minutes, Alex came up to her. He silently opened the door for her, and Molly got into the car. Alex, I'm sorry. You understand that I don't really think so. I understand. He looked at his wife. Her beautiful black eyes are weepy. Her hands are trembling. Molly had musical fingers, thin, long, and Molly has always been very slim. And even age didn't change her ideal figure. Alex leaned over to her and kissed her in his favorite place, namely the corner of her lips, where there are 3 small identical moles. My dear, everything is fine. Perhaps we should consider the last possible option. She looked at him fearfully. What if we fail? Will you leave me? Alex turned to her in surprise and smiled. My miracle. Let's go home. Of course not. In the evening, Molly cooked dinner and Alex sat down at the table. Molly felt her heart begin to beat faster. Perhaps Alex decided to leave her after all. She set the supper in front of him and sat down across from him. Alex spoke. Molly, you understand that we have practically no chance. Alex, but suddenly we succeed. Let's be frank. If in 14 years we have not succeeded, now we are unlikely to succeed. Molly felt tears well up in her eyes. She has been crying a lot lately. Yes, I understand. Have you considered a completely different option? We can take a small child from an orphanage. We need to go around the shelters, look, and maybe some child. How can I explain to you? In general, maybe a spark will slip through. Alex said this and looked up at his wife. Molly smiled. Alex looked at her in amazement, and she explained, Alex, I've been thinking about this for the last 3 years, but I didn't know how to tell you about it. I thought you'd be so vehemently against it. Why do we have secrets from each other now? Alex, when are we going to the orphanage? Maybe tomorrow. While I'm on vacation, I have time. But I want to tell you right away that this is a very difficult process. We'll get through this. Her thoughts were already far away. She thought that they couldn't buy a crib yet because they didn't know the child's age. The woman listened to herself. Who does she want? A girl or a boy? And she realized that she didn't care. And even better both, a girl and a boy. The next morning, Alex called someone. And then they called him back, and he said to Molly, "Get ready, we're expected by 3 o'clock." Molly immediately began to prepare. She chose a dress for a long time. Alex even came to her bedroom. "You seem to be going to a festive evening." She turned around. "Alex, you don't seem to understand. I can't wear anything flashy because there are children there. They may not like the aggressive color. It's also impossible to wear something simple, as we will be mistaken for people with very modest capabilities. And the first impression we make is very important. I would never have thought of that." Alex took a doubtful look at his well-worn but very comfortable jeans and went to the closet for a shirt and trousers. The orphanage greeted them with many choices. When the headmistress led them into a large room, which she called the playroom, Alex and Molly looked at each other with some fright. There were so many children that Alex couldn't even count them. And they were constantly on the move. When his eyes got used to the movement a little, Alex realized that there were no more than 20 little people. The headmistress said, "This is the smallest group. Here are children from 3 to 6 years old." Molly looked at the children with some amazement, and the headmistress looked at her with some bewilderment. The woman even thought that something was wrong with her head. She examined herself, and then turned her eyes to the headmistress. But she was looking at something intently. Molly glanced at her husband, but he was staring in the same direction. When she saw who they were looking at, Molly's legs buckled. A girl of 4 to 5 years stood in front of them. She chewed her finger intently and looked at them very carefully. The girl was an exact copy of Molly. She had 3 tiny moles at the corner of her mouth. "Molly, Molly." Her husband's voice sounded like it was from afar. He seated her on a chair. "Molly." But he didn't get to finish. The same girl approached them. The little girl said, "Hi." Surprised, Molly replied, "Hello. Have you come to choose a child?" Tears welled up in Molly's eyes, and she smiled faintly. "And you can choose me. Otherwise, I really don't like it here." Molly could only whisper, "Okay." After about 15 minutes, the woman was able to pull herself together, and they went to the headmistress's office. Molly said in surprise, "How? Where does the similarity come from? Do you understand that this is impossible?" "I understand. Maybe you have sisters or brothers?" Molly shook her head frantically. "I don't have anyone. I lived with my mother until I was 12. She drank a lot of alcohol and died early. Then her sister took me to her. But she also had no children. I don't understand anything." The headmistress looked at her thoughtfully. "If it weren't for those moles, we could argue that it's just a resemblance. But tell me, who are her parents?" "Sorry, but I can't tell you that kind of information." Alex intervened. "What if we make an official request from the police?" "Then, of course." The headmistress was silent. Then she asked, "I understand that you have not yet decided about the child." Molly jumped up from her chair. "We decided." Then she broke off and turned to her husband. "Yes, Alex?" He smiled. "Of course, there can't even be 2 opinions." "That's good. The girl is complicated. She's been here for 6 months now, but she's not getting used to it. She needs to go home to loving people." "She hasn't been here since birth?" 6 months ago, she lived with her mother, and apparently she was happy. Alex looked at the headmistress for a long time. "Did something happen to her mother? Can you even say that?" "Okay, I'll tell you. Her mother has died. She had something with her health. If I'm not mistaken, she had a bad heart." Molly grabbed the doorknob but turned around. "What's the name of the girl?" "Eve." "Very beautiful name. Please, help us collect all the papers as soon as possible." Molly and Alex walked to the car in silence. At the car, she turned to him and almost screamed with tears in her eyes. "Alex, I don't understand anything. Who is she? How can this even be?" He hugged her very tightly. "As long as it's not hysterical. But Molly pulled herself together. She looked into her husband's eyes and said, "Alex, you have to find out at least something." "I'll try. I'll promise you." 2 days later, Molly went around half the authorities and came to the orphanage. "Please tell me, can I play with Eve and take her for a walk?" "Yes, you can. Only for the first time, no more than 2 hours." "Okay, of course." Eve was delighted with her as a mother. She looked at Molly like that, looked into her eyes like that, as if she was waiting for some words. But Molly didn't understand what she should say to the girl. Finally, the girl asked herself, "Are you going to take me away from here soon?" Molly held her close. "Soon, very soon. And you wait for me and behave yourself here." "Okay." 2 weeks later, Alex came home earlier than usual. He silently placed some papers in front of Molly. "What is it?" "Read. Here are all the answers to our questions." Molly felt her hands tremble. She opened the first sheet. The more she read, the more uncomfortable she became. Her mother drank a lot of alcohol. Therefore, she didn't know from whom she gave birth to Molly and raised her alone. It turns out that when Molly was 2 years old, her mother gave birth to another child, a girl. The doctor said that her daughter had a heart defect. Treatment will take a very long time, and her mother wrote a waiver of the child so as not to take responsibility. No one ever took the girl into the family due to the fact that she had health problems. She left the orphanage when the girl came and disappeared. She appeared a few days later when she registered with the clinic. The gestation period was long, and the disease was very advanced. Contrary to the expectations of the doctors, Tiffany, that was the name of Molly's sister, survived the birth normally. And 4 years later, after a quarrel with a dormitory neighbor, she died. On the last page was Tiffany's poor quality photo. It was clear that she and Molly were very similar. "Alex, it turns out that this is my own niece. Why didn't my aunt tell me anything?" "Are you sure she knew something about it?" "Don't forget that you have moved many times. You told me yourself." "All this is very sad. But now you can do it much faster. You and I will find money for a DNA test." A month has passed. Molly looked around. The room turned out great. Pink bears, a beautiful doll, bright lights, a very nice new bed. "Molly, are you ready?" "Yes, I'm going." They got into the car and were surprised to see at least 3 more cars with their friends. And they moved to the orphanage in such a motorcade. Another half an hour of registration, and the headmistress with a smile hands Molly a package with documents. "I have been working here for a long time, but every child that gets into the family is a great joy. The most important thing in our life is love, and you can definitely give it to Eve." They went out into a long corridor. At the end, a nanny appeared, who led Eve by the hand. When the girl saw Molly, she escaped from the nanny's arms and ran. The girl screamed, "Mom!" Molly thought she was about to pass out. She took a few steps forward and picked up the girl in her arms. Those who saw Eve and those who met her wept, and the girl whispered, clinging to Molly, "I knew that you would come for me today. I often dream about my mother, and today she told me that she had to go, and that now you will be my mother. Also, she said that you are good, and that I should obey you." Molly didn't know what to say to the girl. She just hugged her tighter. A year has passed. Eve is unrecognizable now. Beautiful pigtails and elegant dress. "Mom, where are we going?" "We're going to put flowers for your first mother." Yesterday, Alex found out where Tiffany was buried, and today they went there. Alex was driving, and Molly and Eve were in the back seat. Molly held the girl close to her and thought. She knew about how Eve would take the news that she would soon have a brother or sister. Nobody knew about this news. She herself only received confirmation in the morning, and now she was confused. She was on the verge of hysteria with joy, and was afraid that the same hysteria would happen to her husband. When they left the cemetery, Eve ran after the butterfly, and Molly looked at her husband. "Alex, I need to tell you something important." He smiled. "Finally. And I already thought that you would hide this from me until the very birth." "You know?" Molly was very surprised. "Next time, at least hide the pregnancy test wrapper. It wasn't hard for me to guess." She clung to him. Sasha hugged her. They stood like that, looking at Eve, who couldn't catch up with the butterfly.